immigration can be a smart, great thing. Highly qualified, highly skilled people. We welcome that. But there's a cost to it, because when someone arrives, all the infrastructure, the roads, the housing, the health, it's all here. Other people have paid for it. So it's not unreasonable to say, well, actually, your employer has got to chip in a reasonable contribution to do that. And then they've got the choice. Because otherwise, at the moment, what you've got is mass immigration, where employers basically are making higher profits because they're not contributing to the training of individuals, they're not contributing to the housing or anything else. And so big businesses are making bigger profits, and actually what it's doing is reducing and suppressing wages for British workers. And the proof is in the pudding that we've got the longest recession per person since records began about 70 years ago. We've got the lowest growth decade since records began 70 years ago. Actually, pre-mass immigration in the 1990s, real wage growth for the whole decade per year was 2.8% a year. Amongst friends, let's call that 30%. In the decade before the referendum, there was no real wage growth. So actually, having a restricted supply of labour is good for wage growth, and then businesses have got a choice. Either you want to pay higher wages if you can't get the labour, or you invest in capital equipment. Everyone's complaining about the lack of capital investment, reduced productivity, particularly, by the way, in the public sector. Well, actually, that's because you've got cheap, low-skilled labour coming in from overseas, and there's no incentive for businesses to do the right thing to train up young British workers.
I'm interested in what you mean by low-skilled, because I know you were pro-immigration when it comes to high-skilled immigration. The Conservatives define that through salary, but how will you be defining that? Because if you look at someone like a care worker, I think there are many people who would argue that that is actually high-skilled.
It is, and actually, so we've exempted health and social care, which is obviously the right thing to do, but I just remind people again, what worked in the 80s and 90s? We didn't import huge numbers. We imported some health and social care workers, but the vast majority we were training our own.
But
and it worked.
Was a Windrush because we'd had quite a large number of people
it's because work paid in the 80s and 90s, and if businesses were struggling to pay the rising salaries, then they would invest in capital equipment to replace it. It's literally how the combine harvester was invented. It's basic 101, A-level economics. And so I'm saying to people, look, you've got to pay a fair wage for work. We've got over 9 million people economically inactive, over 5 million people, 1 in 8 adults of working age on out-of-work benefits. And when you hear people trapped on that decision, well, do I drive a taxi for 16 hours a week and claim back pay for the rest of the working week of 40 hours? Or do I drive 40 hours? And they say, I'm only going to drive 16 hours because work doesn't pay. You know there's a problem. And so I'm just saying to businesses, you've actually got a responsibility to work and to train up young people, because that's how we get a successful economy.
Well, this is I would argue, the young people's channel. So, and this is a policy that you say that is aimed at them. Are there any other policies you're going to aim towards young people? Like perhaps you might even lift the two-child benefit cap to incentivise young people to have children, or maybe tax relief, or student loans?
So absolutely. So on student loans, thank you for raising that. We believe that students are being massively ripped off, and there should be zero interest on all student loans. And those students who are, for example, working in health or social care, nurses, doctors, their student debt should be written off on a pro rata basis over, let's say, a decade. So 10% a year. If you've trained as a doctor, if you work in the NHS for 10 years, then your debt will be written off. But if you work for an agency, then no, because we actually want you to work as part of the NHS team. So we've got some great policies like that, and likewise on housing. We've got to build many more homes on brownfield sites, ease the planning system in order for young people to get on the ladder. But actually, by controlling immigration, that helps young people. It means that rents won't be increasing as much as they are at the moment, well over 20% in just 2 years and the like. So yeah, I think that's why I think we're the most popular political party on TikTok. We've got the most followers on TikTok. Did you know that?
Oh, I do know. Well, what about the two-child benefit cap? Would you ever lift that?
I think actually that is reasonable. We want people to get into work. That's the reality. And
is there an argument there for, if you want more British people here, and you'd like, British stock working in the workforce here, would a way to incentivise that or to lead on to that, would that not be to lift the...
No, the way to increase that is to actually lift the income tax starting point from £12,500 to £20,000. That's an extra net £30 a week. That's a huge increase for people on modest and low pay. That would free up about 7 million workers. So that economically is the right thing to do. You've got to make work pay. You've got to, the right thing to do, rather than giving handouts, actually it's a hand up, and the best hand up is saying, let's make work pay, let's make it easier, start at £20,000, not 12.5. The Tories have frozen these thresholds, Labour have got no interest. It's only reform really that's actually on the side of the workers.
Now in terms of your net favourability, immigration holds very well with young people. Those people who are, perhaps put off by your immigration policy, are you worried about losing those votes? Or do you think it's sort of going to be like, as you were talking about earlier, people are secret reform voters?
I think there are a lot of shy reform voters, point number one. The reality is there's always going to be people who don't agree with our policies, but what this clearly says, actually, we're on the side of young British people, and we're going to say, look, immigration can be a smart thing to do. Right numbers, the key to immigration is successful integration. But there's a cost to it, and there's a fairness point, and it's unfair on young British people that housing rents are going up, that wages are being depressed, and that it's harder to access healthcare. I mean, good luck trying to see a dentist. So it's just about fairness.
Mm-hmm. And could you name me a Mickey Mouse degree?
Could I name you a Mickey Mouse degree? Golf course management does not need to take 3 years, frankly.
Right.
And I actually studied
but
it.
That's not my
No, I didn't study golf course management, let me be clear. I looked into this, and the average teaching time per degree is 10 hours a week, 23 weeks a year. Last time I looked, it was 52 weeks. So I think lots of students might like to save 15 to 20 grand by doing a 2-year degree, working a bit harder. Again, that's about choice.
What are those degrees? Because people aren't bringing their dependents here to go and study golf management, are they?
But they are. We've just seen it,
Not
literally.
golf management. There must be a degree that concerns you that people are, bringing their dependents to study.
Look, when I went to university, I didn't take my girlfriend up there. I mean, it's part of the point of going to university is to meet people. So this whole idea of bringing dependents is a complete nonsense. And also, you shouldn't have the right to have a graduate worker visa afterwards. So you've got to be selling high quality degrees. When I was contacted by a whistleblower, a lecturer, from a university that I barely heard of, that I discovered had 30,000 students, they are selling vast numbers of master's degrees, 1-year courses. There's no requirement to speak English. The qualification levels, frankly, are woeful. You don't even have to come to the university, which is in breach of the international student visa rules. And they're just selling these visas, and then they get the right to come here forever, and they haven't paid the price, they haven't paid the cost, and that's just unfair, because we're all paying the cost for the infrastructure. Sociology is another Mickey Mouse degree, as far as I'm concerned, but others might disagree.